Hi. I just wanted, first of all, thank you for letting me watch your class today. I know this is only the second week, and so it's brave of you to let me into the class today. There's still a lot of unknowns, and I appreciate that.
No problem. Happy to have you here. It's always good to hear someone's opinion on class anytime.
Well, on that note, can I ask you what you feel went well today?
Well, today I reviewed the rules. We got contracts signed. Um, Students got introduced to their presentations for next week, so they're making introduction posters. So, all in all, we got everything covered.
Yeah, there was a lot done today. Do you feel that there was anything that didn't go to plan?
I mean, honestly, no, not really. I feel like we got everything done. We covered the lesson objectives, and those were all met. Um, I mean, perhaps we could have done a bit more talking with the students, um, but we'll get into that next week when they're giving their presentations.
Yeah, that should be good, and it's great to see that you've made such a strong start on the rules. And I think by handing some rules to students, it should help these rules become more ingrained, become norms for them. It was a good recap and reminder for last week's work. And I particularly like the interactive element of it. It was pretty fun. The idea of the students voting on what punishment would be breaking the rules. And they picked the most embarrassing, sing and dance. So that should be entertaining when someone breaks the rules. You also had a contract for them to all to complete and sign. Do you mind me asking how you decided on the rules last week? Did the students propose them too, or how was that done?
Yeah, so basically, when class started, I gave them a few minutes to come up with what they thought like the ideal classroom rules should be. And then we took the ones that groups had in common or different students had in common, and we put those on the list and we tallied them up. And that's how we came up with our norms and our rules for class.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I said, it's only the second week, and we've done a lot of groundwork for establishing rules and norms. Would it be alright if I highlight one issue that the students seemed a bit confused about?
Oh, feel free. I'm always open to new ideas and suggestions.
Uh, if, if I could just make one suggestion about maintaining these rules, it's just that students seemed a bit confused at one point at cross purposes. Early in the lesson, you were clear there was no writing while the teacher were talking. And you said this twice to the students. They were copying something down from the board and seemed pretty eager and interested in what was going on. Later on, though, as students were finishing one task, you started to explain the next task. You told them if they weren't finished that they could keep writing. Do you think this would be confusing for the students? And how do you think this transition could be improved?
Sure. Good. Yeah, I honestly hadn't noticed that. The transition could definitely be smoother. I probably should have stopped them from writing while I was explaining something to them. So maybe in the future I'll add like a pencils down routine or rule that will become a part of our procedures and transitions.
Yeah, it's just a small thing. It was important to keep these clear at the start. If you're going to maintain these high expectations, you obviously have students. Um, do you think the students understood the grammar point from today?
Yes, I asked if they understood twice.
Yeah. But sometimes, especially in ESL teaching, you may explain something to students that they've misunderstood that. When you ask them, "Do you understand?" They'll just reply yes, and so they're not lying to you, but they fail to grasp it. And one way to clarify this is to use concept checking questions like CCQs. So for today, we were talking about the future. You could have said, "I will live in Japan." Just means that I used to live in Japan, that I am now still living in Japan, and you can build these CCQs into your PPT.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. It's something that I hadn't really thought about, but it makes sense.
Yeah, and building on that, then ICQs are something you can use as well. Information checking questions just asking them after you've explained a task, do you need a pencil for this task? Are you doing this by yourself or a group? It forces them to give a more detailed reply. It's very useful in clarifying instructions. How do you feel the instruction giving went today?
I feel like it went pretty well. Everything was on the PPT or on the handouts that were on their desks. So all in all, I feel like everything went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I would agree. There seemed to be very little time wasted on students getting ready. All the materials were in hand, some good procedures in place. There was very little time wasted. There wasn't many issues at all today. It was a very good class to watch. I know you're getting to know your students, but do you think they could have spoken more in class?
Definitely, it's something I'm aware of. But we're only starting out. This is the second week of class, and next week we're doing presentations. So we'll have a better idea of their abilities then. Right now, I didn't want to put any pressure or put anyone on the spot today.
Yeah, that's fair. I completely understand that. And it's good to see that you have them doing the presentation next week. They will all speak in that class and you can build from there. Just on the group work, I know students were doing their native language. This is just something I was wondering. What would happen if you had a rule preventing this, like maybe an English only rule? Do you think that could work?
Yeah, I can definitely initiate an English only type rule. We'll probably start doing that next week, and in the same vein as the punishment system that they have for breaking the being late rule, I'll let them decide on consequences for not speaking English in class. Yeah, no problem. All right. Hi there, Allan. My name is Josh, and I'll be reviewing your lesson today. All right. Yeah. So let's get this thing started. Before I tell you my thoughts on your lesson, could you tell me how you think it went? Yeah, no, that's great, and that's awesome, and I completely agree. Everything went really well at the beginning half of the lesson, and then the activity. I don't feel like it went poorly, but I think it just could have gone better. Um, that being said, I really liked how you started off your lesson, getting students to remember the what you were discussing, calling on students to talk about what you had learned in the previous lesson, um, and also acknowledging students and giving them credit for knowing the answers and stuff. That goes really far for helping to build confidence in active listening and learning. That being said, one thing I had a question about was during your first part of your lesson. All right. Yeah. So it's always great to go over material so that the students know what's expected, as well as going over tricky words. But do you think there was any way that you could get the students more involved? Exactly. You got it. The answers we tell them won't ever stick nearly as well as the ones that they have to figure out on their own or by themselves. And that note, I wanted to take a moment and point out how smoothly everything went during your lesson. Uh, Great job on that. They were all sitting really nice in the reading circle. There was very little chatter going on or playing, and when you did start to lose control at one point and a couple of the boys started talking, you were able to gain control again just using the words quiet listening.
Yeah, norms are important for the order of the classroom, so drill them to keep them in your memories.
Yeah, you also did a great job asking CQs about the story during and after the reading. This is a great way to check understanding without asking them the typical teacher question of, do you understand? Now, after going over all of the worksheet in detail, you sent the students back to their desks to start on their assignments. How do you feel that part of the lesson went?
Honestly, not as well as I hoped. In the first part, apart from the story, we all seemed on the same page. Students were answering questions, helping each other, they seemed on top of what we were doing. But then when we went to the activity, they all turned into philosophy.
Sure, yeah. That's actually great that we're on the same page there. It's not a bad thing, but it's definitely an area that we can improve on. And if you don't mind, I've got a suggestion.
Oh yeah, by all means. That's what I want to hear.
Great. So in that case, have you heard of the CHAMPS method?
Yes, a little, but it's just how you structure your activity, right?
Yeah, more or less. Basically, you can either write it out on the board or you can print it out and have it somewhere in the classroom and you just incorporate it into part of your norms. But it breaks down how you structure activities. So the C stands for conversation, and at that point you would explain how you want them to talk either in their groups or quietly for individual work. The H stands for help, so that means you tell them how you want them to ask for help. So not necessarily always raising their hands. Sometimes they can approach you, sometimes they can ask a friend. The A stands for the activity, so what it is that you actually expect them to do and how you expect them to go through the activity. M stands for movement, which just means how you expect them to move during the activity, whether they're sitting in their seats or they're sharing work or moving from group to group. P is participation, which is how you expect them to participate with each other, which is kind of similar to movement, but there's times when you do need to differentiate between the two. And finally, S stands for success. So in that case, you could model something or provide an example of what you want the finished outcome to look like.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Definitely goes structure onto the activity.
Exactly, that's it. It's just a method of guiding them into a little bit of more structured activity instead of letting them run wild. All right, on that note, I'm pretty much done. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I think we've talked about everything.
All right, okay then. Great lesson. Again, well done. I'll pop in at some point in the future and see how you're doing, and we'll go from there.